All right.
Okay, we are live with the stream. Welcome back to SimWorld. This is episode 4. In today's episode, we are going to be doing a PGA recap. There was so much to talk about, and man, a lot got announced, but a lot of stuff I feel like this year was announced kind of before the PGA show. Like Foresight was announced before the PGA show. I don't feel like that, apart from Unicore that had massive announcements, I really don't feel like there was too much there that was like brand new, launch monitors coming out and things like that. Welcome back, Sam, as well to the Golf World stream. So appreciate you, Sam, coming in as always. It's fantastic to have a co-host on the show. I just think it makes it flow a lot better, and we get a couple of different opinions.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on, mate. And like I said, I think I'll try and do as many of these as I can. And I think when there's things like the PGA show, absolutely, I'll make time to come on so that we can obviously discuss anything. And I think, you cover all the updates really well. So we're obviously working directly with a lot of the brands. So when those sort of updates come out and we hear about what's coming, it's good for us to both kind of get together and have these conversations. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, nice. We do have Spike. Spike is in the chat. Let us know, Spike, how's the audio? How's the video? You'll notice my projector's not on behind me. I had a few technical difficulties this morning. I've tried to change a few cables. I've updated my cables and got better cables. And what happened is as soon as I unplugged them, plugged the new ones in, I've lost my aspect ratio. I've lost everything. So it's a bit of a hot mess that I'll have to sort out after this stream. But yeah, let us know how we are. We got Jez. Jez is there. Always a pleasure having you, Jez, in the chat. Jez is a wealth of knowledge with sim building. He did a lot of sim building back in the day, so you'll see him in the Facebook group. He's a wealth of knowledge. Definitely ask him questions. Hey from Edinburgh, Joe. That is a long way away. Thanks for tuning in. What time is it there at the moment? Do you know what's funny is I actually work in Edinburgh, South Australia. So, I mean, yeah.
They're quite different, I'd imagine.
Quite different, yes. All right, let's crack into this PGA show. So I guess we'll go through. I'm going to do a video recapping all of this, but where do you want to start? I mean, should we just start with Pro T? I guess that's kind of fitting because we both have Pro Ts, and yeah, I mean, I love the Pro T. So should we start with Pro T? I guess first off, no new hardware. So there wasn't a lot of coverage on Pro T that I saw. There was a few channels. Bobby, the friendly golfer, he did some videos on the Pro T, and also he's got some exciting news because there is a nearest the pin competition. I won't spoil it, but I'll let Bobby announce what happened there. But he did a video. We're getting so the theme for Pro T this year: no new hardware. They've got to focus on software. So they've gotten the hardware to a point where realistically they can't really improve it, words according to them. So they've gotten the hardware where they like it, where they want it. Now it's all about refining the software for them, which I'm excited about because I do feel like with the labs software, I feel like there are a lot of things they can do with the software to make it better. Some of the things that they're going to come out with are dispersion circles. So we're getting dispersion circles. We're getting the history is now going from a history tab to more of a digestible session view. So this feeds into the dispersion circles. You can view them by sessions and then view them by clubs. So I think that's a very, very welcome change. And that's going to help with bag mapping and things like that. We have seen a lot of the software configurations come out in the beta version of Labs. So I always run the beta. I'm running the beta now. I've got my cameras, my USB cameras plugged in so I can get each swing. I can view my camera from down the line or wherever you want to view your camera from. And they're all customizable. So you've got your Labs software that you can customize everything and have it exactly how you like it in one page. What are your thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, I think is my video coming through? It looks like from the stream I'm watching, I'm just stood there at the PC still,
Okay,
so I'm not
yeah,
sure if
you
yours is
are. Just give
working.
me a sec.
I can talk while you have a look at that, Joe. Is my audio coming through okay?
Your audio seems to be coming through okay on my end, but yeah, your
Okay,
video is definitely
it
frozen. Let
just
me have a
froze,
play
right?
around.
Okay. So I don't know whether it's where I'm running GS Pro in the background. Let
No,
me try
I
and
think
close
it's
that out and see if that makes a
potentially.
difference. But I'll let you have a look at that. But with Proti, yeah, I think when they initially started with getting into the, I guess, more premium launch monitors, I know they had a previous Proti. It was kind of like the OptiShot where it sat on the floor and it had like sensors and stuff. But when they launched the VX, that was originally going to be in a range of 3 different models. So they were going to have a single-handed version, which was like a much cheaper entry level into an overhead. Then they obviously had the VX in the middle, and then they had, I think it was the RLX or something like that, that was going to be their commercial version of the VX. But what they did after releasing the VX as the first model, they actually decided not to bother with the other 2. And I think it's a really good idea because the reality is this, as a from a price point perspective, I think this fits very well. It's actually at the cheaper end of overheads, but I think it gives you just as much value as the more premium, I guess, price tag. So when they decided to just have one hardware product, I think that's good for anyone, especially that has bought one, because then the only thing they're going to be refining is the software. And you're absolutely right, is that the software itself is basic, but basic's good in a way, because if something's basic in the sense of here's your data and here are your tiles and we're going to let you move those to any which way you want, I think that's really what people want. Because I look at videos of people streaming all the time, and the way they have their lab set up is always different for each person, so I think that's a really cool feature. But I think at the PGA show announcing that they're only going to focus on software this year, I think that's amazing. This thing has so much further to go in terms of the software, and I think pairing it with GS Pro is the most common thing we see. And I think both of those together, so Labs and GS Pro, definitely lack the game improvement side of things. I know GS Pro has things like Operation 36, which is great for short game. They've got custom skills tests. They've got the randomized greens, and there's obviously your practice facility as well that you can use to go and do practice. But in terms of the basic kind of, show me some dispersion circles, and like you'd get with FSX Pro and stuff, when you go to a driving range or TrackMan and you want to just work on mapping and all of those kind of things, I do think it's a little bit lacking there. And I think now we're in the age of AI, which we'll probably cover some more later. There's so much room for them to do really cool things. So in labs, they've been recording all of our shots into the cloud. So they've mentioned in the settings that we will be adding more features. When they come up, you're obviously going to be able to filter all of your shot data into it straight away. So you're not going to have to start from scratch. And I envisage all of that stuff being mapping, dispersion circles, and just some calibrating the data into something that's actually more tangible, particularly for those that maybe don't go deep into each data point and just want the system to tell you, okay, well, this is the gaps that are too big. Maybe that's
Yeah.
a club fitting thing, or maybe you just need to be aware of those gaps so that when you play, you know what your distances are. All of that kind of stuff's great. And I think that, for the rest of the year, if they're going to focus on software, that's great. I think people always get worried that there's going to be the new hardware the following year that comes out, and you go,
Yeah.
oh, if only I waited, right? And I don't think we're really going to see vendors doing that, because and we'll talk about this when we get to Unicore, I guess, but yeah, keeping the same hardware is great because you never feel like you're going to have buyer's remorse. But look, there's always new brands coming out, as we know. But yeah, I think that's a really good thing.
That's it. And I think there's so much things that they can do with the software. And one company, and we'll get onto all these other companies later in the video, but one company that's really squeezed as much as they can in terms of software out of their products is FlightScope with the Mevo Plus. There's so much, cool data points and cool visualizations that they've done with the software. I think Proti definitely has a long way to go with their software, and it's cool to see them focusing on that. And even I'm going to throw out, we'll get to TrackMan in a bit, but what I love that TrackMan has done this year is they've introduced something that makes smash factor easily digestible. So a lot of people know the optimized smash factor for driver being as close as you can to 1.5. But what TrackMan have done is they've basically turned that into a percentage, because not many people know what the optimal smash factor number is for a 9-iron, for instance. By making it just a percentage, going, hey, you got 95% efficiency out of that shot, I think that is just magic. And I'd love to see Proti kind of go down that track of, giving us optimized numbers and things that are just easily digestible. There's a lot of room there, and they can do a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see where they take it this year.
I think as well, just finally on that, Joe, with AI is going to play various roles in golf sim. So I think we've got different kind of segments where AI is going to help. So we've got AI in terms of game improvement, in terms of your physical swing and what you're doing. And there's obviously like things like Sports Box as well, where we're looking at what you're physically doing and then giving you a lot of insight there, which obviously Unicore are already doing within their software. Maybe some of that's coming. The other AI stuff is, I think, around how you play golf. So this is where I think GS Pro really need to, and I always hate criticizing, not criticizing, but I hate suggesting ideas to GS Pro because the price point is so ridiculously low. It's unfair to go, hey, you guys should do this, you should do that. I do think they need a premium option. I think they need to realistically say, well, we've got such a good platform, there should be a next tier of premium membership where you get additional features and charge for it. Because a good example of this, I would say, is I've recently got the Arcos sensors in my clubs, so that when I go and play a real round outside, it's obviously going to take all of that data and give me some actionable insights. Now they've finally realised that, hang on, we need to be using AI here. So tell you where are you losing strokes, and it goes so much deeper than you'd think. In just a case of, oh, your particular shot is bad, when this particular shot is bad, you need to work on it. It's more around which club are you most efficient with. If there's a choice between two clubs, you should go with the one you hit better. All of these kind of things, and then also explaining to you where you can improve on your game. That data is already in GS Pro, so I think there's a bit of room for GS Pro to have this functionality of, you've played these rounds, here's the commonalities in how you score or how you don't score. So where do you miss from? Is it your approach shots that really make you lose those strokes, or is it your putting? And I think that's really something that we'd like to see coming with the software side. But like I said, all of the brands within the golf sim world, I guess, can leverage AI, and that's where I think we're going to be going with it.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think we've seen that this year with, I mean, Foresight was the big one, talking about integrating all that data with the Bushnell rangefinder and giving you a caddy on course. We've seen FlightScope do the exact same thing. Potentially, Arcos or whatever company could team up with GS Pro essentially and do exactly what you're talking about. I think there's a lot of room for tech not only to be used individually but connected, and feeding all that data everywhere into different products, not only indoors but then taking it outdoors, is going to be the next probably 2 or 3 years the talking point.
And I think as well, that's the reason most people have a sim. People look, there's, I would say, because obviously we speak to sim customers every day, but I think there's a 20%, I'd say roughly, of people that go, look, I don't really care about game improvement. I actually just want a realistic golf simulator so my buddies can come round, we have some beers and we play a round of 18. Now they still invest a good amount of money because you don't want it to misread, or you don't want crap software. So people still invest a lot of money because they want a realistic recreation of golf. But I would say the vast majority of people get it because they love golf, they're obsessed with it, but they just want to get better. So all of these tools that can just simplify the learning process. And of course, I think PGA Pros are great because you can have that dialogue. But if you're going to go out and play real rounds, and you're going to have sensors on your clubs, and they're going to tell you how far you hit it, how far, more importantly, how far you miss by, where you miss, what clubs you're bad with, and then you get home and you don't need to think about your round and try and decipher what really went wrong, because that can be taxing. It tells you, work on these 3 things because that's where you're losing strokes. And then it's a nice simple process that, okay, well, I need to fix this club, I'm bad with it. Go into your software of choice, and then that's going to tell you, okay, well, if I want to get good with this club, I need to do this challenge and that challenge. And then, like the percentages you spoke about with Smash Factor, I'm a perfect example of that. I don't know the ideal smash factor for each club. I know driver because we all do. So that's great without having, because that's hard to remember all of those, right? That's really, it's quite a lot, 13 clubs ish. It's hard to remember that. So that's really good. And again, if you just have a simple percentage number that you can work on your swing with a particular club, when you go out, you can start to then add that to your game. And that's exactly where you need to be adding to your game, instead of just bashing balls and hoping you get better at golf.
It absolutely makes sense. All of that connected tech, it makes so much sense. I think that's going to be the talking point for the next few years. Yeah, really interesting. Even that, like exactly what you just said, the Foresight with that application now, you will get if you select, say, a 7-iron on course, on the Foresight app, it will overlay your dispersion circle with 7-iron. So I just think that is just so clever. It's so smart, and it makes so much sense having that connected tech, because what you might find is it might not be, you with that particular iron. It may potentially, the loft and lies might have changed, or it's going to make you question it. And then you can go start investigating. Is it the club? Is it me? And you can really just improve, which is what we all want to do. Okay, so ProT, all about the software. They can do a lot with the software. It's going to be really cool to see where they take it this year. One thing I'm going to email Dennis. I really want Spin Loft, because they already have the metrics there. They've just got to do the calculation for us. So I'm going to talk to him about getting Spin Loft on the actual ProT software. But that's ProT. Let's talk about the next big one. We did have a few announcements from Unicore. So Unicore have done a couple of announcements. We're getting the new overhead IXR, which is going to sit behind the ball. I've got my thoughts on this. I know you've got your thoughts on this as well, Sam. We'll get into that in a minute. They have also announced the Unicore IXT, which is a commercial standalone product, which they kind of had last year. Do you remember they had the iMinis in that were kind of baked into a commercial unit that sat by the side of your golf ball? So potentially they've just taken the iMini and made it internal now instead of having it externally. Oh, one thing we didn't touch on with ProT, we'll talk about the software in a sec, because they've announced some actual software as well. But sticking with Unicore, the next thing they announced was the Game Day software, which has been announced for so long. I have used the previous beta. It's like, is this thing going to come out already? New hardware, new software. So big announcements from Unicore, probably the biggest announcements we saw from a launch monitor company. Let's start with the IXR. So overhead launch monitor, but it's placed behind the hitting area, which to me, I'll tell my thoughts, and I know you got your thoughts, but to me, making hardware that has flaws so you can't get things like face impact location, it just seems odd to me to place it behind the ball when it's just, there's obvious flaws in the hardware when you do that. So I don't know why they've done that. Well, I guess you'll talk about why your thoughts on it, but to me, that's an odd choice. I don't know why they would do that. But let's get your thoughts, Sam. IXR.
So the couple of things. So the data it can't get, also angle of attack, it can't work that out either. So
It's a
but
flawed hardware.
I personally believe it's by design.
Yeah.
And I've already spoke to you about this, and I think for Unicore it's actually a good move. I know that on the surface, when I probably talk about it, it doesn't sound like I think it is, but really, as a company, let's talk about the device first. So it sits behind the ball, which obviously limits it in terms of the data it can collect. So it's going to collect less data. You don't need to use club stickers or special balls, which is a great plus. It's essentially going to phase out the QED, right? So that's the first thing. The price point is pretty good. Probably, we're talking US. I think was it $6,999? So $7 US. So probably $500 more than the Pro TVX. And look, we all know that's why they've released it. They had a QED, which is their entry into the overhead market. The XR is definitely that entry level into the overhead market.
Yeah.
What I don't like about it, yes, less data points, not going to show you impact location, and the video to me just looks weird. It does, like, when you look at a Pro T video of the club coming through the ball, it makes total sense. Granted, it's not like showing you the kind of shaft lean and stuff, but in terms of looking at what most people focus on, which is your path and face, that stuff looks amazing on the Pro T, and obviously the cameras, actually the quality of them, the 500 FPS cameras look amazing. What I think is a reason why it's a good product is, look, they have a great, and I hate this word, they have a great ecosystem, Unicore, and obviously all of the things that they have around AI Trainer and the swing optics, balance optics, their kind of world of software is amazing. I think it's really good. And I don't think anyone really has anything as polished end to end as Unicore.
I agree.
But what I will say is that then, we've got Foresight, who in my opinion have better hardware, better data. we see some people complain about the club data on the IXO, particularly at the PGA show. Looking through all the videos, I saw a lot of commentary around they don't trust the club data and stuff. But club data is a wormhole that no one wants to go down, to be honest. So
Yeah.
we'll leave that as it is. But as an entry level to the overhead market for their products, I think it's a good move. Again, this is exactly the same as what Foresight are doing with their entry level GC3. So the GC3S, for example, or the LP, whatever way they do it, right, getting you into their kind of ecosystem.
Yeah.
You can't release a product that betters your top of line products for less, because then you just totally you're basically it's a big middle finger to all of your current customers who have invested. So you imagine if the XR measured everything the same as the IXO and 2, it didn't need stickers, and it was $7,000. Like, what would be the point of that? They may as well just
Yeah.
discontinue the other two and say, let's all go home. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. So this is why the competitive nature of sim is, I think, always going to be a competitor. Like, let's take Proti comes along, they develop something that essentially can do everything the same as an IXO, without stickers, without special balls, and there's the big fight between the two around who's accurate. One will get dismissed and saying that's not accurate, and they have a big fight about it. But really, because Proti have gone in at that price point with as many features as possible and as much data as possible, it's hard for their competition to then just match it, because it totally disregards the rest of their portfolio. So yes, it's the right product. Yes, it does the right amount of things for that price. But as a brand new customer that goes, what do I get from both? Yeah, we always say that we're open to discuss every launch monitor, which we are. And look, we sell Unicore, even though we're not a Unicore official reseller. We sell iMini lights all the time because they're a great product for the price.
They
but
are. Yeah.
For someone that wants an overhead, between an XR and Proti, I can't say that the XR is going to be better. Maybe if someone said right now, today, I want training features. I don't care about as much data, but in essence, you kind of want that if you were caring about data. But the swing trainer and the balance optics, great, because obviously Proti aren't doing that. So that's the main differences between those two. But like I said, it's very challenging when there's a big kind of competitor that comes into the market with something as convincing and accurate as the VX. It's just very difficult to kind of just match it or beat it. So that's my thoughts on the XR. I don't know if anyone has any other questions about it, but I think everything was pretty good in terms of what people covered at the PGA show.
I mean, again, I just really, I find it hard to have a product that has an obvious flawed hardware, mounting it behind. To me, mount it forward, but then maybe don't give as much data. Don't give dynamic lie. Don't give dynamic loft.
100%.
Just limit a few things.
Restrict the data and go, if you buy this, it's that's it. And that makes more sense, I think. But
maybe make it to where
it'd be fine. But
maybe
I don't think
because
you can compare it when it's behind.
IXO2 has a mode now where you can get stickerless data. So that unit essentially gives you stickerless data. I don't know how accurate that is. Club data I'm talking about. So I don't know how accurate that is. But coming out with a product that sits behind, which I heard them talking about how it gets the club data, and it sounded very complex. I don't know whether it's calculating or whether it's taking the data and then estimating it. I've got to dig into it a bit more. But to me, it just seems, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how that product plays out. It's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. Okay, so that's the IXR. But like you said, I will say Unicore, I feel like right now, they have such a good ecosystem in the fact that you can get the, performance optics with the balance optics, the swing optics, and it all ties into each other. They've got the AI coaching. So as a package, I feel like they are further down the line than Proti. I think Proti are going to get there, but I think that they're not playing catch up. They're a late starter. So I feel like they'll get there. They've just got to, catch up with those things. IXT is more of a commercial product that is going to sit to the side of the golf ball. So I'm assuming this is targeted for commercial centers or potentially driving ranges. you know, if you own a driving range, you don't want to invest in a TrackMan system. You're going to have these units that effectively sit to the side of the ball, and you can hit shots, and it's going to capture all the data. You can play on the screen and things like that. So that's kind of a separate product. I don't see a lot of people buying these for home use. I think this is much more of a commercial product.
Yeah, and we don't need to spend too much time on it. I think it's yeah, I personally don't understand it myself. What a single-handed bay, like just buy an overhead anyway. Like why do you want it there? And
Yeah,
then
again,
you know,
single-handed. Yeah,
it's got a built-in PC to it. Like buy
yeah,
a PC. I don't yeah, I don't really get it. I don't buy a touchscreen monitor or yeah, I don't understand how that works for commercial when you know you're going to do your due diligence with a commercial center. So yeah, I don't know how that fits, but maybe in the Asian markets as well. You know, we see these
yeah,
big kiosk type things, so maybe there's obviously a reason they've done it, and maybe I just don't quite follow. But yeah,
yeah. Okay, let's talk software then. So I'm going to talk game day software. I mean, I get that, and I have used the beta on game day. I can't say, you know, exactly what it was like due to restrictions, but when I used game day, it seemed to be pretty amazing in terms of graphical quality, very cartoony though. And that's what we kind of saw at the PGA show
yeah,
again. It is very cartoony. Um, yeah. I mean, when you've got GS Pro, it boggles me why a lot of these companies that make hardware are so invested in making, you know, course software as well. It blows my mind. But I'll take your thoughts,
yeah.
Sam.
They there's a reason, and there's obviously money. But yeah, it's such an uphill battle. Like why are you trying to create something to compete with GS Pro when it's just how the courses are the big one as well. Like GS Pro is just pumping out like high quality courses every week, and like I
Yeah.
said earlier, hopefully we can do a bit of a segment on here for course of the week on GS Pro. It's just
Mm.
insane that every week you see the flyovers that I can't remember the guy's name, but they're really awesome. Does all the flyovers for them, and
Birdies and Eagles,
you
is
know,
it? Yeah. No. He
yeah, is
was.
it Brad Cole Key or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah. Yeah. Birdies and Eagles, I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure it is.
so it's yeah, I just don't know why it's worth investing all that time in something that you're inevitably going to charge more than GS Pro. You're going to have a smaller, limited number of courses. You're going to have more bugs because you don't have a big community to test.
Yeah.
It just feels like I said, even for the big guys like Unicorn with Game Day, I'm like, what, is it going to compete? And
Yep.
if it does, like, surely it's got a long way to go.
Mm.
Maybe the only thing where it does start to become a bit of a okay, well, this is better, I guess, is moving to newer engines like the new Unity engine because obviously GS Pro is going to be locked in with whichever engine those courses are built on, I believe. So, you know,
Absolutely.
if
That's a
they
big
then want to
talking
move,
point.
and for me, the big thing is optimization. I personally think GS Pro is like so power hungry for what it is,
Mm.
and that is because of the engine. I guess it's around you know it's not optimized like the big leading games, for example, like GTA
Yeah.
will come out and it'll be super well optimized and will run you know insane frame rates with incredible detail for much less power. I guess so maybe and Jez asked what's Unreal Engine. So basically, games have what's called a graphics engine within it, and it's basically the platform that the games are built on. So each game will typically use an engine that allows them to build whatever it is for that game. So if we take sports games, they may use a totally different engine to a first-person shooter. So these engines, and I don't know a lot about this in depth, as you can probably tell, but the basic way of looking at it is that you have those platforms to build the games on, and each
Yeah.
style of game is going to be suited to different engines. Now, those engines can improve themselves. So the platform that you're building something on, if the new version of that engine has new features where it says you can make the water look incredibly
Yeah.
realistic, but it
Yeah.
uses 60% less power to do it, that's amazing. Then when they start using that engine to build the games, they obviously need less power. So Unity engine is what most golf games are built
Yeah.
on. And if we take TrackMan, for example, when they went to the new, I think it's Unreal Engine version 3, I believe
Yep.
is the latest one, the courses look insane. So we've seen VG and it came out and it's unbelievable. And it's going to be less taxing on the GPU.
Yeah.
So the challenge with GS Pro is that they've got 13, 1400 courses. Um, so yeah, it just how can you then you can't just directly port those over to the new engine, I'm told.
Yeah.
They have to be
No, exactly.
redesigned
Yeah.
in that new engine, which
Yep.
is a task that no course designer wants. Maybe we can develop a
Yeah.
software that does that for them. That would be amazing. So then I think a good investment would be, if Unity Engine keeps improving, how do we then make sure we can port courses over and somehow automate the way that they're then recreated in the new engine? But I don't know. It's something we'd have to get a special guest, get Greg on or something to talk through
That's
course
exactly,
design.
yeah. Yeah. Because I've been
That's a good
talking to Greg
idea.
about it.
Unreal 5, right? So that goes
Mm.
to show, like I said, I don't know too much about it, but yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so I've been talking to Greg McDonald about this, and that's exactly it. GS Pro is built on an older engine, and so if they wanted to go to Unreal Engine 5, which, like Sam said, it's going to be less power hungry, the courses are going to look, a lot better with the lighting, with the, all those real small details, the shadows and things like that. That's where you want to go to a new engine, but if you do that, you're not going to be able to port the courses across. So potentially the designers could all get together and then build, say, 50 of the best courses on this new engine and then slowly migrate across. But you're basically talking about scrapping, essentially, how many courses are on GS Pro now? About 1,500 courses, and starting from scratch. So it is a big task, and I mean, no one wants to lose their home courses that they've paid to have built on GS Pro. So like Sam said, we're going to have to potentially get some ported across. How they do that, I don't know. Whether they even can. It's just a massive wormhole. Oh, we just had a super chat from Dirty Dan. Thank you, Dan. Let's go into that super chat. We'll make sure we get all these super chats because I do want to. So Dan said, "Do you know if Unicore Mini will have club face and face to path like the Garmin R50?" Sam's answered that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It
yeah,
doesn't do it now, and they haven't spoke about it coming out,
no.
so I don't know. Doesn't look like
I
it.
highly doubt they will do that, if I'm completely honest. I think I personally, and I always try and figure out how these units are doing it. So the GC Quad is doing it because they've got 4 stickers on the club face, and then they've got cameras that are angled in, so they can figure out where in time and space the actual club face is. The Garmin R50, I believe it does it because it really narrows up that window, that hitting window, and you're hitting essentially parallel to the unit, and it's got that massive sticker. Let me show you the stickers on the club face. It's got these big stickers on the club face, and they're so big, and I think they're big for a reason. I think because you're hitting parallel to the unit, and you've got those massive stickers, it's able to tell where the club face is. I can't see the iMini or the iMini Lite being able to do club face, giving us face to path. I don't think they can. They could potentially estimate it, but I don't think as a company they want to do estimated data with their units. I think they just want calculated true metrics, if that makes sense. I don't think they want to delve into that wormhole of estimated metrics. So I don't think we will, and I haven't heard of it coming. So yeah. All right, so let's talk Rapsodo now quickly. So Rapsodo, not really a massive announcement, if I'm honest. Rapsodo announced that they were partnering with GS Pro, so they've officially partnered with GS Pro, which is fantastic. They should have done that years ago. I told them they should have done that years ago. They've finally done it, and it just makes me wonder, with a new partnership with GS Pro, potentially next PGA show, are we going to see new hardware? I don't know, potentially. And then the other thing they announced was the new Callaway golf balls. So essentially, they've updated the RPT golf balls with, the new Callaway golf balls that were released last year, I believe. So, yeah, new golf balls and partnership with GS Pro, which is fantastic to see. I don't really think we need to touch on that much more. Let's talk Foresight. So I'll give a quick rundown of what we saw with Foresight. So again, this was kind of announced pre PGA show, so it was kind of odd that they announced this. How many? It was a couple of weeks before the PGA show. They announced the LPI, which I now know stands for Launch Pro Indoor. So it's an indoor unit, and that's essentially an iMini Lite competitor. It's got no battery, it's got no screen, and it has a $500 subscription. You do get the first year free. So that was kind of the first bit of hardware. You also have the GC3S, which is the S stands for subscription. I've found out all these things. And that is a global launch monitor. So unlike the Bushnell Launch Pro that was only in the US and I believe it was the UK, I'm not 100% sure. Now we have a global GC3 subscription model. This is $3,800 US. Again, $500 US subscription fee. However, you do get a Bushnell, I think it's the X3 Pro rangefinder. And this is where you're going to have that link enabled technology where you're going to be able to get your data from the Foresight app, which they're going to pump a lot of money into and make a lot better. And that's where you're going to have your overlays in the Foresight app of your dispersion circles and things like that when you're on course. And then finally, GC3. I mean, that's kind of in that family. So you've got LPI, GC3S, and then GC3. The GC3 is unlocked and does not have any subscription fees. However, you've got to pay to play. You've got to pay for that accuracy because that thing is quite expensive.
Yeah, we're going to
Yep.
catch up with Foresight when they're all back from the show, and just see how things sit. Being in Australia, I'm always just hesitant to go, oh, cool, look at all these new products. Because sometimes being here, they can say, oh, by the way, we're not going to, Australia's not a region we're going to be doing that in. So that can sometimes happen. So I'm always conscious of how it's going to sit in Australia. And generally speaking, there's a kind of rule of thumb, I think, around if you can see a US price, double it, and that's what it will be in Australian, generally speaking. So I think if you do that with the Unicore range, it kind of does. Although lately that seems to be, yeah, they're very expensive. So yeah, when you tell someone it's like 13,000-14,000 for a GC3, they can't believe it. But then they go, oh, it's in Australian. Yeah, that's quite common. So
yeah,
we're going to wait
absolutely.
and see before we kind of start to, I guess, talk more about those products.
So I guess Foresight as a company, they've come out with a couple of new hardware. I guess the LPI's new hardware with no screen, no battery, and then the GC3S is kind of, it's just a GC3 with a subscription essentially. And they've made it a nice color on the back, which the colors do look nice. I like that blue one. What they're investing in is a little bit of hardware, but also software. So software is a massive focus for Foresight. Obviously, one of their sister companies that they bought Bushnell, I believe. When did they buy Bushnell? I can't. They bought Bushnell anyway, and so what they're doing now is investing in their software. They're going to invest in their application, and then they're also investing in everything linking in and speaking to each other. So you're going to get the most out of your game. You can take your data from indoors, you can take it outside and have it in the actual rangefinder. So big focus on software.
Really, it could potentially be $6,000.
Yeah.
But again, with it being Bushnell, yeah, I don't think it's going to be in Australia, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah. Is the LPI going to be in Australia? I don't think so because we haven't seen Bushnell in Australia. Well, we have Bushnell as rangefinders, but we don't have the, Bushnell, what is it called? Launch Pro in Australia. So
yeah, and I think when they actually license that, they do it based on country, and obviously the biggest market was the US, so I think it's only available there. I think they do it in the UK as well, actually. But yeah, we'll wait and see. It's one of those things where don't get your hopes up about a product until you know it's going to be available in Australia or it's a region they're actually going to release the product.
Yeah. The other really cool thing we saw with Foresight, and we saw this last year, but they kind of have improved it. We saw the integration between PuttView and the Foresight products. So you have to be using the FSX software to actually do this, but we saw that you could play virtually in your room with a screen, and then when you get to the green, it links in with the putt view and will give you the putt in your room, obviously size depending. So if your room's, you've got a max distance of say 20 feet, then you're going to have go up to 20 feet putts, but you're actually going to putt in your room on the putt view, which is pretty incredible because that platform moves around and it's going to try and recreate your putt in the virtual world in your room, which is pretty cool.
I loved looking at that because I think the putting's something where when we do demos, we always say, well, you obviously think putting is going to be non-existent in a sim, but once you show them how it works with the Pro T and GS Pro, totally amazing for improvement because you get to see obviously how you launch the ball, where you hit it on the face, do you left, right, like it shows you what you're doing. So great for game improvement, but it's just that bit that's missing, isn't it? Where it's
Yeah.
nice to physically look at a hole, set up and roll the ball into the hole and see it drop. Like that's what's missing from sim golf mostly. So watching that video, it looked amazing, and I would love to be able to, whatever the size of your area is, the system knows that. So as soon as you get within that, it can then recreate that on the floor. The only thing I didn't know is, was that a putt view surface, and they actually have manipulation in the angles and stuff?
Yes, I believe the whole thing is a putt view surface, but when it
Because otherwise it would be
recreates the
pointless
putt,
if you just every putt is straight. Like
yeah, when
doesn't
it recreates the putt
well,
in the
yeah.
virtual world, it won't have a putt going through where you hit from, which I thought was quite clever as well. The other thing is,
Okay, yeah.
they did say that you could actually have the putt view in a completely different room. So you could have like, say if you've got a commercial facility, you could almost have a TGL arena set up. You could have a massive putt view in the middle. And the dimensions they said for their max one they've tested was huge. So you could have a big thing in the middle of your studio, and then you could have your simulators off to the side, which is that would be next level.
Yeah, I think it would be really nice, and it doesn't feel too hard. I think even with the floor projection stuff that we've got happening at the moment, that's cheap and easy to do. It doesn't take a lot for GS Pro to have that capability, for example. So
Yep.
when you've got a part, you just literally have a separate window essentially that you would then have
Yeah.
that window on your second projector, and it would just recreate the part. Obviously, that needs some calibration, and obviously the projector would probably have to be a specific one to have the throw ratio. Distances would all affect the size, unless they have sensors in it. So there's a few things to work out. But really, I think engineering wise, that's not too hard to do to recreate the part. The only thing you can't obviously do is then the actual slope. So if you're going to go to all that effort to have putting on the floor and you put it in a real hole, you can't. It's pointless unless you have the actual slopes in as well. I think so. I think that's always going to be something that's incredibly
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So that's kind of a quick wrap up of Foresight, and then we'll quickly touch on FlightScope. So FlightScope, they've come out with new hardware. So their top end device, they've basically made a carbon version. So it's the X3C now, and the C stands for carbon fiber, which makes it a bit lighter. In my head, this is kind of a TrackMan 4 competitor. It's a big radar unit that's going to give you all the data you want. And then they've also come out with a rangefinder. So the FlightScope rangefinder i4, I believe it's called, and that is going to bring the integration of data like we've seen with Foresight. So it's going to get your data from a session, and then it's going to show you that in the actual rangefinder and give you a virtual caddy essentially. So I don't think we touched on the Foresight one, but it's gonna take into consideration temperature, altitude, and slope, and then give you a club recommended on that. They did talk about wind as well, but I don't think the wind is taken into account, I believe. But anyway, so they've come out with their own rangefinder that's going to give you a virtual caddy. So we're seeing this a lot. What else do we have? The Badger AI. So that was another thing from FlightScope. So they've basically got this AI that is going to, from your session, depending on your data, it's going to start recommending things like shaft recommendations and things like that. It's going to take all your data and say, hey, you need to launch it a little bit higher. So potentially you need a bit more kick. We recommend testing out this shaft. It might give you that what you need. Which that is, I mean, it could be quite powerful, but with club fitting, it is a wormhole, and depending on how you deliver it, you can often get the reverse effect with different shafts. So I think that's a wormhole. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, but it is being released in a few weeks apparently. So yeah, we'll see how that all pans out. But yeah, not a lot from FlightScope. I really thought we've kind of had Mevo Plus, and I know they've done different iterations of the Mevo Plus. I really thought this year we would see something new from FlightScope in the entry level. We haven't seen it. They're still persisting with the Mevo Plus and really extracting what they can out of software. We're not seeing much hardware from them.
Yeah, it makes it quite difficult for our packages are obviously structured based on how we think launch monitors perform for the price. Um, in our birdie package for left and right, because we obviously segment everything based on whether you need to accommodate left and right-handed golfers. So for the birdie package, if you're a single-handed sim, it would be a square, and then if it's for a left and right-handed sim, we'd obviously go the Mevo Plus. Now, it's quite difficult since the updates of the MLM2 Pro for me to really suggest the Mevo Plus over that, considering
Yeah.
I know you probably get more data points if you upgrade to the Pro, but that can be around 6 to 7,000 Aussie dollars, and I just don't think indoors it's that accurate. So a lot of the time when we talk to customers, I'm kind of more inclined to say get an MLM2 Pro because the updates to chipping and stuff have been amazing. Um, so I think for a fourth of the cost, pretty much, because they obviously released the limited edition Mevo Plus, the kind of grey one.
Mm,
Yeah, MLM2 Pro now with official GS Pro integration, it's almost a no-brainer. Buy an MLM. The performance of it is insane, like how accurate it is. And I will still
yeah.
say to people, look, you're probably going to sacrifice your real short game and putting, even though they did add that on. I know there's a big difference between people saying it can do short game. Yes, it can, but I don't think it's that accurate. There are a few misreads you're going to get, I think, and obviously little bump and runs are going to be nowhere near as good. But there's also the licensing stuff as well. They're kind of, I guess, Square are putting pressure on people around licensing because they're just
Yeah.
like, if you want to use GS
Absolutely.
Pro, you go do what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at Flight Scope, I don't know what they're doing to be honest, and where are they trying to compete?
Yeah.
And they're going to try and compete with the MLM2 Pro and do something that's still radar, because they kind of, if they want to stay in their lane, they have to do that, or they just do what most launch monitor companies are doing and trying to do photometric for indoor.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Potentially, we'll get an overhead unit from them, like we saw with TrackMan. They kind of seem to basically have the same mold as the TrackMan. So yeah, potentially we'll see an overhead from them in the future. But yeah, who knows? But yeah, it was definitely a bit. There wasn't a lot going on there, which was interesting. We'll quickly touch on TrackMan. So TrackMan, I didn't pay too much attention. Jez will probably be in the comment section just telling you everything about TrackMan. He loves it. But what I saw from them that was really interesting, we've already touched on it, was basically giving a couple of new metrics. So they're taking your data and making it easier for you to understand, which is fantastic. Because, like I said, even I couldn't tell you the ideal smash factor ratio for a pitching wedge off the top of my head. I have a chart, so I reference my chart. I think what they're doing is really smart in making data easier to digest. And what I love with their software as well is if you're going to go get a fitting on a TrackMan system, depending on how you swing it, it's going to give you ideal ranges for, out of your club speed. Your ball speed should be roughly here. Your spin should be roughly here to optimize your shot. That's what I think ProTee could be doing. I really think they could be making it easier, taking the data they have and making it easier to digest for everybody that has them. So there was the smash factor percentage, and then they also did the same thing for spin. So they have a new number that is basically going to go the spin rate you're producing, it could be more efficient. You could be, potentially changing the lofts on your irons or doing something to generate a bit more spin. And they're putting it into an easily digestible percentage number. So I think the software is fantastic. In terms of hardware, though, no new hardware from TrackMan. And to be honest, I don't think anyone really expected there to be any hardware changes. They came out with the IO, I think, last year. And
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, they've just been trying to refine and make the IO as best they can. So, yeah, it was software was the story for TrackMan. Notable. So, notable units that weren't at the PGA show that I think would have stole the show, the Square Golf Launch Monitor. So, I think the Square Golf Launch Monitor, if you've seen my recent video where I played GS Pro and also, tested it head to head against the GC3, with the Pix balls, it blows my mind. I mean, that unit is kicking goals. It is absolutely kicking goals.
It's always hard for me to chime in on the groups and comment how amazing the unit is. So as a reseller, I'm always conscious of being clear with that when I'm in these groups. But the thing is amazing. It's just you know, when I used one, just I think I mentioned this last time, but we had to rebuild our PC, and because we rebuilt the PC, we had to then reset the license for the VX because it assumed we were installing it in a different thing. So we had all of that complication. We actually had a demo on their way to us, and I was panicking, thinking, I don't know what to. I can't get this fixed because it was a weekend and Pro T support wouldn't have got back to
Yeah.
me within the hour. So I panicked. I thought, well, how am I going to demo everything? Luckily, they weren't like adamant they wanted to spend this much money. So I ran everything as I would, and then I connected up the Square. I hadn't even used it yet. Obviously, I wanted you to use it before me to obviously tell me what you thought about it. And I set up the Square. I plugged it in, turned it on. I downloaded the connector. I didn't even download the Square app. I downloaded the GS Pro connector. It found the device immediately. I felt like I didn't even do anything. I opened GS Pro and then I just loaded up a driving range and away I went. And it was
Yeah.
like and this was a while back as well. This was like 3 updates ago. And I was using obviously the Square balls with it, and just every shot, every distance, all of the metrics I saw, particularly obviously for ball data, was just amazing. And I just thought this is wild. And I went obviously with the conversations we've had with Square from the initial discussions to becoming the official distributor for Australia. Talking with Jin about everything they were doing and them coming from a short game background, I guess, and putting. When I went around the greens and started doing chips and putting, I just thought this is like
Yeah.
just incredible for
Blown
$1,000.
away. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you,
And
Steve. I
those
really
updates as
appreciate
well,
that.
yeah.
And yeah, I completely agree. I think for what they've done with the Pix golf ball is just unreal. And speaking to Jin, they're so quick to get back to you. They're so responsive. They want to make this product the best they can, and they've literally taken a Pix ball, implement it within what, a week or two from when we talked to
Yeah.
him, and now, I mean, it's performing incredibly well. I mean, the experience I had on that 9 holes, it was very hard for me to tell the difference between using that unit and using one that costs 10 times as much. It's just,
Mm.
it's mind blowing.
And also as well, I can categorically say this, that we do not pay you for reviews, and we don't even pay you commission. We don't give you discount codes. Totally your transparent opinion, which obviously everyone that follows you knows that you aren't told to say anything. It's totally up to you, and you have totally your own opinion. So for you to obviously go and play those 9 holes and obviously do your comparisons with the GC3, that's what we want
Yeah.
to see, because we only want to sell stuff that we believe in. Or, you know, if we know there are problems with launch monitors, we just want to tell people that that's what we see with them. We don't have to try and hide stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of a problem, I guess, with when people advertise their product, they leave stuff out intentionally. So a big example of that would be the Mevo Plus. I think they're not very clear in a sense of telling people, well, if you hook this up to a full sim software, you're not going to get end-to-end golf with it. And I think people think that's the case because it's this price point. It talks about how
Yeah.
accurate it is, and then they go, well, the putting doesn't work, or, you know, 1 out of 100 says their putting works perfectly. Of course they
Yeah.
do, but you get a lot of that. And I think for Square, it's been really good just to see, you know, here's a really good anecdote of how confident they are in their product and how confident I am as a byproduct of that. Jin, who is one of the senior parties involved with Square, when I said to him, "What do you want me to do with support inquiries?" So, you know, misreads, problems with units, defects, ball not all of the problems that you may get, or faulty things that may happen with the device. What do you want me to do? What's the email? And he said, you forward them directly to me. And I thought, well,
Yeah.
that's strange because you're going to be inundated. You know, there's always problems with launch monitors, right? We always see stuff like this. So
Yeah.
um, interesting that he's like, no, you send them directly to me because there won't be any. And just, you know,
Yeah.
it's wild to think that, you know, we've had a few occasions out of, you know, the many squares that have been sold in Australia. There's only been a few cases where people are having issues with it, and the rule is, if you have a problem, you have to take pictures of your setup, video the issue, and send it to us. That's all you have to do. And 9 times out of 10, or to be honest, 10 times out of 10, we don't need to forward it on to Jin because we can see that there's actually a problem with the setup. there's white on your hitting mat, so it's not reading the ball or
Yeah.
not level. There's the levels of them are out. There's always something that we kind of pick up on. But I think that's really good to see that he's willing, as a person in that sort of senior position within the company, to actually be
Yeah.
the first person to speak to around if there's a problem,
Mm,
because the confidence is there. If he said there's not going to be a
mm,
situation where it doesn't pick up the ball, or that
yeah.
you're getting, your driver misreads, but everything else is fine. It's like it just doesn't. They're confident in their product, so that's really good to see.
Yeah, it is incredible, yeah. And he's so responsive to us, and he's so open and just pleasant to talk to. Massive thank you, Jonathan. I really appreciate that. Um, all the super thanks. I never expect them, but it's just incredible, and I really appreciate all of them.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Um,
Thanks.
right, we've got a few minutes left. We'll say 5 or 10 minutes. We might slightly go over. We'll open it up to the floor for some questions, but actually one unit I want to mention as well as the Nova. I have been using it. The thing is with me, I do work full time. I've got a family, and it was my daughter's birthday party yesterday. It's a actual birthday tomorrow. It is incredibly busy to try and get videos, to pump out these videos. I'm trying to stay on top of it with everything that's going on in life. And the Nova, I will have more videos on the Nova because I do think that product is really good. And again, they were at CES, they weren't at the PGA show. Potentially next year, they will be at the PGA show. And potentially next year, hopefully me and Sam will also be at the PGA show. So fingers crossed, next year could be quite special because I believe Square's going next year as well. We'll open it up to the floor for some questions. So we're happy to stay around for 5, maybe 10 minutes. If there are a lot of questions, we'll just open it up now.
Yeah, this year just didn't work, did it?
No,
Personal commitments, family
yeah,
commitments. It just wasn't the year for us, annoyingly. Although we really wanted to. Next year, we've got to get it booked in early, and it's happening. I think.
yeah. Hopefully next year, fingers crossed, it'll be our year. We'll be there, so
Yeah.
that'll be a lot of fun and a lot of work. I'm sure I'll be editing till the early hours of the morning, trying to pump out as many videos as I can.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's about trying to do as much as you can, but at the same time, kind of get the ones that you feel are most beneficial for everyone. And I guess one of the things around Nova is, for obviously me being Bayside Golf, it's every time there's a new launch monitor out, and obviously Joe tests it. It's not like we're just in control of that and trying to say we're
Yeah,
going to start selling this, so you're allowed to do things on this product. It's totally up to Joe what he wants to do, and the Nova for me doesn't fit into our portfolio that well. I don't see where we would sell one of those instead of a Square. We obviously want to keep things simple for customers and don't want to blind them with 20 different
yeah.
options. But if it gets to and the other thing as well, I think it does. It's a project at the moment. I think it's not a big product
Yeah,
brand launch that's going to go through mass production and then go through all these different testing phases. It feels like a project, and it's an absolutely amazing project. And the guys that are doing it, it's amazing what they're doing.
yeah.
But that's something that I think isn't really what we want to do as a brand in terms of having someone on board that we can sell their products. And I think there'll be more like that, because I think the launch monitor tech these days, with a couple of decent cameras, you can do a lot. So I think there's going to be more of
Yeah,
those coming up. But for they will be projects, I think, and unless they
yeah.
do branch out into solid mass production with consistency around production and manufacturing and quality control, it's not something we want to kind of explore until we know that it's going to be something we can safely give to our customers and go, you're going to love this, and it's reliable.
Absolutely, yeah. And even they admit, and that's why they've launched it the way they have, is it's not going to be a mass commercial product. This is more of a niche product for people in the sim golf community, and that's who they're trying to target. And I did see a comment way at the top at the start of the chat. Someone was talking about the Nova and saying that it's hard to contact them and the Discord's the only place. They're kind of doing that for a reason. They don't want this thing, or even they cannot keep up with a commercial demand. So the way they're doing it is they're doing it a specific way. They're doing it the way they want to do it, and so that's why it is that way. We got a question from Spike. What did he say? He's talking about the. We got one from Frank. Let's do Frank first. So, will the TrueViz balls be coming to Square in the next update? So speaking to Jin, they are working on select Callaway balls. that was meant to come with this update. They didn't get it to a point where they were happy with it, so they've delayed it a little bit. So I do believe that, yes, I believe they are still working on it and it will be coming in the next update. What's Spike? Spike just asked about something. I can't find it. Does
It's
anyone
about
have...
apparently the new top that's on it. Oh, we were sold out just like every other region. So
Okay.
our next shipment is coming to us. We've told everyone mid-Feb, but we hate over promising. So I personally think, good educated guess, we're probably going to have our next batch of square units mid next week. So
Yeah,
a lot
nice.
quicker, pretty much 2 weeks quicker than we told everyone. So those pre-orders will be going out as soon as they land. Essentially, we're prepared. Our team are ready to send everything out. We've contacted everyone actually to offer
Yeah.
them the official case because we only knew that was coming after the fact. So we've added a lot of those onto people's order, and obviously free shipping, so they don't have to pay twice. So we've got a lot of orders that are going to be going out, and I do think that by next Friday we'll probably see the first ones going out the door. Bike, I will actually check with those units and have a quick look to see if they're
Yeah,
different.
see if the actual
That may be
hardware, see
something,
if the screws have changed. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Jin didn't mention the hardware. I mean, the hardware itself internally is not changing. Potentially, they're using a new cover on the top of it. So, yeah.
Mhm.
So Jez is saying, I predict a big home tour will come this year for the community. Yes, I think golf tours, like we've seen with the next tour from Trackman, it would be amazing if we could get that for the GS Pro community. I think having, a actual tour that you can win and make money, or play for big amounts of money, would be amazing. You need big investors to do that. So yes, I can see a few different tours coming this year.
Ryan asked if the GS Pro, if Square are working with them to have an official connector. It is an official connector. Official basically means that the company themselves have built a connector. That's what we mean by official. When it's third party, that means that the actual brand themselves have no involvement in creating that connector. So yes, it uses the open API connector from the GS Pro side, but so does Proti. So the official connection, it might add a logo to it, but it's the same thing. So yeah, official connector. And like I said, MLM2 Pro has always been a tricky one for me, and I've had customers that may not be the most tech savvy, and trying to get them to set up an MLM2 Pro on their iPad and then connect the third party to Awesome Golf and then close the app, connect it to the PC, use the third party Springbok connector. It's a lot of work, and look, unless you're quite tech savvy, it's a real challenge to do that. So I tell everyone to use GS Pro. That's just what I do because I think it's the best. Even if it's not officially supported, I still recommend you do it. And obviously, I don't sell GS Pro. I recommend you buy it yourself because it'll be cheaper, and obviously, it's a yearly subscription. But with them releasing an official connector, helps so much because at the end of the day, people are just going to use it anyway. So I think
Yeah.
it's worth doing. And look, in terms of how you do it, Square is a perfect example of, if you buy our unit, thank you. Here's the unit. It's fully unlocked. And if you want to connect to GS Pro, that's absolutely fine. And we're not going to charge you for it. I think it's just great. That's what people want to see. And that really challenged the Rapsodo, I think, brand around why there's these hefty, essentially, subscriptions that, yes, there's value in them, but that's where every company make their money. I think is the software. Recurring revenue is something that every company wants, and software is an easy way to get that.
Yeah. So Spike's just sent me a picture. I've got a picture on my iPad. I think the actual hardware looks the exact same, Spike. I can't see any difference. What I can see is they do have the top of the unit. They've got one of these plates on it, but the actual hardware itself looks the exact same to me.
Top
Yeah.
Gun said, what's Square doing for people that have had issues? Has there been any problems? Out of our first batch, we've had a couple of issues with battery. That turned out to be software. The firmware update fixed that. We haven't had any that we didn't get one return that was faulty. So I think that's quite good. It's a delicate unit. It's tiny. They travel a long way. We're in Australia, obviously. Like, I'm surprised we didn't have any that just were broken, to be honest. Like, you expect that to happen, to be honest. So That was really good. In terms of issues, like I said, we've had 2 or probably 3 out of 80 that have sent us emails to say this isn't working correctly. A big one has been people accidentally have the swing stick enabled, so it obviously is waiting for you to position the ball at the front of the unit for the swing stick, and they go, oh, it only picks up my ball at the front of the unit. They go into the settings and realize the swing stick is enabled, so that's a common fault. User error, unfortunately. And then the other one, like I said, is setup. Very rarely are you going to get a situation where the square happens to just not pick up the ball. Like it's just that's why Jin said if you get a customer with that issue, video it, send me the video, because I think he's so confident in saying there's no way that would happen. If there's something wrong with the device, it would break, or it just wouldn't work, or turn on, or just it doesn't connect. I don't think we see random issues like this. So I think we get this with Skytrack all the time. We used to, we don't really sell them a lot now, but with Skytrack all the time, where people would say, the distances are great on my low irons, but then my long irons are really they're just they're out. There's something wrong with my unit, so it just doesn't work like that. So in terms of issues, just been amazing that there just hasn't been any, and we're prepared. With Square being a lower price product, we were very well prepared for the fact that we may be selling more than we would with an 11K unit, right? So we expect to sell a lot more units, a lot more volume, a lot more customers. So we actually invested in having some more of our team, adding to our team, and also training our current team on Square so that we can diagnose those issues straight away. But been surprising that there just hasn't been any at all, to be honest.
Okay, we'll go. Give everyone another minute to get your final questions in, and then we will call it there.
You can answer that one for yourself from Jeremy around what are your personal goals this year for work
personal
or golf.
Goals. I might have a video where I actually talk about my personal goals, but the big one for me is world #1 on the Tips Tour, on the SGT. Sorry, that's world #1, 170 cruising ball speed, which I'm slowly getting towards. I've been doing in the gym, working on my swing. So yeah, the same world #1, 170 ball speed. Yeah.
Nice. For me, I would say maybe 501 in the world.
What are you in the
Something
world
like that.
rankings?
Oh,
What
I
are
don't know.
you?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not great. My goals actually this year have been outside golf. I feel like my difference between my indoor golf and outdoor golf is like crazy compared to everyone else. Everyone sees like a 5 to 10 shot difference. For me, it's wild. So I can shoot even par comfortably in the sim, but my official GA handicap is 19. So it's a tough game, but it's coming this year for me. I want to be off 12, between 10 and 12 would be nice, and I feel like I only need a couple of maybe like 4 or 5 rounds where it comes together, and I'll get there. But yeah, I enjoy the process. So
yeah,
and yes,
yeah,
Jez, we will have a
absolutely.
game when we finally find some time.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have a game when I get to Queensland, and
Yes,
that'd be
100%.
good.
I think that's a good, actually a good segue as well. I guess just from our side, what's happening. We have a new product that we're developing with the addition of Square. It opens up a whole new market for us. So we positioned ourselves as a business as not the entry level to golf sim by any means. So what I mean by that is if you have a $3,000 budget, we can't help you, because we believe that a proper golf sim has to have a few elements. So enclosure, hitting mat, projector, and a gaming PC, and a launch monitor, of course. So that's what our entry level was. So our packages have always started at around 7 or 8K. Now with the Square, that really did come down to that 7K mark, and we can still give you a HD setup with a proper gaming PC so that you're able to play GS Pro, because that's what I think makes the big jump from an iPad to a proper simulation software where you're really replicating golf in a much better way. So with that, we're still limited in where we are in the market in terms of people's budgets, and with the addition of Square being only $1,000, that really we're selling into a market of people that probably don't have $7,000 to spend. Now, where I see a gap in the Australian market is you can buy a net, and just from looking online, you can type in a golf net. You can see that there's the Net Return, who are the best nets to buy, US made, premium product, absolutely can't get a better net. You've got your guys like Spawnia that have their net as well, which is an awesome pop-up net. I believe that every other net is a cheap off the shelf,
Yeah.
standard Chinese manufactured product that everybody buys from pretty much the same factory, and they just sew their logo on it.
Yep.
They're about, even Bunnings sell them, right? So they're made by like PGM and those kind of things. So they're around 300 Aussie dollars. If you go to a sim reseller, they'll probably charge you 6 or 7. That isn't a very good product in my mind. And I believe there's the gap that I see is people don't have room for a full enclosure, so they want a net, or they don't have the budget for an enclosure, so they want a net. I don't think just because you don't have the room means that you should then have to buy a really cheap and flimsy net. You can still buy a high quality one, but I think that the net return from the US is obviously pricey, considering it is just a net. So we are developing a net product that's developed by us and manufactured from the ground up. We're not just copying a design and putting our label on it, or just saying, hey, do you produce nets? We want to buy one and put our label on. We're actually working with them to build this from the ground up and look at what's in the market now, what's wrong with it, and how we make it better. There's lots of commentary out there and reviews around what's wrong with the nets out there. So it makes our job simple, right? It's what's wrong with it, how do we make that better, and then we can release that to the market at a good price point. I envisage it being around $800, which for a
Breaking
high quality
news.
premium net that's using a high quality net with a decent, the way the netting works is all around the gaps, basically. So the smaller the gaps, the higher the quality. And of course, you go into the nylon profile as well. So looking at all of that intricate detail and just basically ticking the box saying, yes, this compares with a more premium product. The aluminium tubing is going to be premium as well. So you don't have to sacrifice the quality just because it's a net. So we're doing that as part of being able to offer a package where you can have an entry level budget but not just get cheap products. So let's say you pair a square with our Bayside Golf net. The hitting mats, as you're aware, we only sell Easy Tee. We don't sell any of the cheap stuff that people sell here, right? So US made hitting mat. The beauty of Easy Tee is actually where it's just turf, it rolls up. So it will be a package where it can easily fold away. The hitting mat isn't this big rigid square that you have to move around. You can easily roll it up, put a bungee around it, and stack it away or something. Also, again, like you're paying for a premium US made product. So you can't get that in Australia. You can get fiber built is here, but again, that's clunky and big and designed for a full sim. So in terms of a high quality package that's probably going to sit around $2,000, including the launch monitor, I think as an offering to that entry level market, but still not sacrificing the quality, I think is a really good idea. So I'm really excited to keep testing our net product and hope that within the next 6 months we have something available. It is agonizing because we've got so many customers buying Square that say, I just want everything from you guys, and we just can't do that. But we'd rather be patient and get it right. So that package will simply have a question, indoor or outdoor. Obviously, Square doesn't work outside. So if you're outside, we recommend you pair this package with an MLM instead. So super simple. The package is available. Everything's included. You just bring an iPad and away you go. So that's exciting stuff that we're working on. And obviously, all of the other stuff stays the same. Our enclosures are still the same. Couple of small tweaks we're doing along the way, but we're always going to work like that, but no significant changes. So that's some exciting news for us over the next 6 months.
That's breaking news. That that could have been a whole episode on itself. Yeah, I guess with that, let's call that an episode. Oh, the other breaking news: Rick Shields has joined Live, so we might talk about that next week. But that is it for this episode of SimWorld. Thank you for joining in. Massive thank you to Sam for coming and co-hosting with me. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that, and we will be back next week. It's probably just going to be me. I'll see if I can rope Sam into doing it again.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Joe. And thanks everyone for joining.
All right. Cheers, guys.